cables coming out your PC into the back of your head, you know.
Sum up for me what excites you about the metaverse.
I think there's so many elements, and let's not get into what's the definition of the metaverse, save ourselves from that. But I think for me, let's just talk about, you know, if you think about the evolution of the internet, it's been around a long time now.
It has.
And even what we're classing as Web 2, which is effectively the read-write element of the internet where we all became creators. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's 20 years old, that phase.
Wow, yeah, it is.
Yeah, when you think about it. And so the term Web3 gets bandied around also, but unquestionably, due to advances in technology, due to, you know, blockchain technology, a whole bunch of things, hardware technology, you could just see that we're going to have that, you know, perfect storm of things becoming useful, AI, you know, things becoming useful at a very similar time, which is enough to hit that sort of tipping point when you tip into the next revolution, if you like. And therefore here comes Web3, and which now includes decentralization and true ownership and digital property rights and all that stuff, and as well as more immersive content, more user-generated content, all that kind of thing. And what's exciting about it is we're definitely, it feels like day one of, it's probably a 20-year journey.
You think?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, yeah, 10, you're going to see amazing advancements in 5 years. We won't recognize ourselves in 10 years.
So you think it'll be like a slow, gradual process? You don't think one day something will just emerge and it'll be...
Well, some of it will. I mean, it's a bit like the story of overnight successes, you know, the thing about overnight successes, they've been at it for 10 years, you know, and so everybody thinks, you know, AI, ChatGPT is an overnight success.
Yes.
Well, no, this stuff's been in development for years, and VR is probably a good example of one that's been in development in the public space, and it's taken way, way longer than, you know, everybody got excited about it in the early days. But it's hardware development's really hard, adoption's really hard, particularly when you haven't had that sort of, and even VR's had some breakthrough moments. You know, if you think about VR when it first come out, you needed, you know, 4 other stands in your room. You needed a room a certain size. You had to assemble these receivers and all the rest of it.
And a football pitch to play it on.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. Massively powerful PC, cables coming out your PC into the back of your head, you know. So now we have Quest 2, and it's, you know, it's Wi-Fi. It has no cables. The computer's in there. You know, that was a massive advancement forward.
It's a jump, yeah.
But still not enough to drive kind of mass adoption yet.
Right.
But it will come, you know. So some things take a long time. Blockchain's been around for, you know, donkey's years. But it wasn't until the application of Bitcoin and crypto that it found its first use case that got real mass movement and popularity. And then, you know, we don't need to talk about the story of it since then. But I mean, now we have multiple chains. We have proof of stake, and we have an enormous amount of people driving this forward. But back to the metaverse, I think the things that excite me the most are the fact that things will be user-generated. I truly believe that the vast majority of the metaverse will be user-generated in the same way that the vast majority of what you see on YouTube is, you know, user-generated.
Yeah.
It's just content from, you know, normal people. Now, maybe not so normal because they've built incredibly successful careers off the back of it. But that really, really excites me because you haven't really seen that as much in the 3D space.
Right.
Excuse me. So, you know, because 3D is really hard, is historically really, really hard to build. You know, you know, whether you're using Blender or 3D Max, you're trying to build games in Unity and games in Unreal or anything. You need a lot of skills, and the learning curve is massive. And so we're going to see more and more people be able to create content really, really easily. And 3D immersive content, this kind of stuff you could dive in and walk around.
Right.
Even if you look at like social media, like TikTok and Snap and all the rest of it. Do you remember the first time you ever saw a filter, or you ever saw one that, you know, a filter that responds to your head movements?
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago, but it was pretty mind blowing when you saw it, because up until that point, this is the sort of the thing of multi-million-dollar production houses that do this kind of stuff. Now my phone's detecting my head movement. It's putting a cat or a dog on it, and it's hilarious, or it's morphing it in really interesting ways. And all of a sudden that gets normalized overnight.
So is the metaverse just going to become the norm, you think? You know how like face recognition was like really big at the time, and
Mm-hmm.
now every Apple phone is like, it's just a given, isn't it? Are people just going to get to that stage where like the metaverse is like just the standard?
Yeah, I think I don't think we're ever going to have that moment where we go, here it comes. It's a light coming down the track. Here comes the metaverse. It's a week away now. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it's here. That won't happen. All that will happen is all these various different technologies, mixed reality, augmented reality on your phones, the quality of your phones, the capability of the phones, 5G networks, data transfers will increase. Virtual reality hardware will decrease. We're going to end up with augmented reality hardware that probably wear on your face. It's inevitable that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And let's not get into machine brain, interfaces. But again, loads and loads of work in that place. So it's coming. It's just going to be, but it won't be like you throw a switch. Oh,
Right.
I remember the metaverse got invented in 2005. It's not going to happen like that.
Yeah.
We're just going to evolve into it. But I think it's just the next phase of the internet. It's an evolvement of our lives to become more digital. But the big shift, I think, really amongst all of those things probably is the digital ownership part of it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you get to create content, you get to own things, you get to find utility in those things. They belong to you.
It's yours,
They live
yeah.
on decentralized networks. There's no central governing body controlling what you can and can't do with that thing. And that's almost like handing the internet back to the users, which in fairness, in Web 1, that's what it was like.
It was.
Yeah, that's what it was like,
Yeah.
And it was only Web 2 when, some great technology got created, but also with it came these large, powerful, centralized bodies, which we're glad they were there,
Yeah.
and they still get used every day, your Facebooks and your Googles and all the rest of it. But Web 3 will just be that switch back where we go, okay, right now, it's almost like hand back the internet to the users. But yeah,
It's just a different phase, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. But I think YouTube was so insightful that they could look that far ahead
Yeah.
when they created that company. Because back then, people didn't even have phones with cameras. Most people didn't have a digital
Right.
camera. They had like a camcorder.
That's actually strange to think that they were building a platform based around video, and video was still at a time when most people weren't taking videos.
Well, yeah, we were probably, maybe I'm going to get this wrong, but we were probably coming out of my video camera has tapes in it.
Yeah.
And if I want to do something with that, I need to connect some leads to my camera,
Right.
maybe put it on a VHS or we were,
Yeah.
maybe record it to CD or DVD or whatever back then. But do you know what I mean? There was this process, it was laborious. And then the idea of editing it was some editing software. You were like a power user if you were doing that. And yet YouTube was there. They could probably see what digital cameras are here. What's the next step? And so they were so forward thinking. It was incredible because the internet speeds weren't up to it. The hardware to record it wasn't up to it. The learning
Interface,
curve for
anything
someone
like
to be
that,
able to do it wasn't up for it. And I'll admit, I remember looking at YouTube and going, who the hell's ever going to want to watch my crappy home videos?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that goes through your head, And of course, they could foresee the future probably better than I. And
Anyone could,
now we
yeah.
all, carry super high definition cameras in our pocket.
Yeah.
And
So do you feel like now the most successful companies in the future will be those that predict technology in 10 years, 20 years time, that are really, really, really forward thinking companies?
I think the biggest shift we're going to see is there'll be a new genre of company that is corporately structured in an entirely different way, where all the winnings and all the earnings aren't retained by the company. They're distributed back to the users of said platform, or that's going to be the big shift. And you already see it, right? If you look at marketplaces, Apple still takes 30% or whatever. I think, the Google Android marketplace is probably the same. Can't recall what Steam take right now. Roblox takes 70% or something crazy.
That is madness.
Yeah.
That is crazy. I still can't get over that.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, multi-million-dollar games have been created on Roblox, and they're fully fledged businesses as a result. But the reason they charge those numbers is because they have a closed ecosystem.
Right.
Now compare that to the marketplaces on blockchain, 2.5%.
Yeah.
And even will that even stick around at that rate? Nobody really knows.
Right.
Well, why is it so low? Well, it's obvious, because everybody gets a choice of where they want to trade their stuff.
Very true.
Because anybody can
Very
open a
true.
marketplace.
Yeah.
And so instantly, those revenues are driven down. And that's just an indicative of what the successful companies in the Web3 space will need to think like, which is actually, this is about distributing wealth and sharing it amongst our users to a certain extent,
Right.
and not trying to close them in all the time.
And trap them, yeah.
Yeah, and none of this is brand new. Open source has been around for years, and arguably, well, factually, many of the most successful open source projects are the biggest in the world. More Linux servers than there are Windows servers in the world.
Which baffles me. Yeah,
which
that's
is
just
baffling, but it's true. So open source has been around for ages, and I think it's just that switch up of mentality, which is you can't own. I've heard it 1,000 times, but you are the product. If you're using something free like Facebook, then the product is you.
Yeah, that's true.
Because your content is being retained by them, controlled by them, and been sold on by them. And fundamentally, I'm not one of these people that gets on his soapbox and has a major issue with this. All I'm saying is the world evolves, and then competition turns up, and things are structured in slightly different ways.
Yeah.
People will always have a choice about what they do with their personal information. People always have a choice about whether they care whether they're on a centralized platform or decentralized. Again, I'm not a maxi on that. All I know is that more and more people are going to be building. An enormous part of you will exist online, and if you're a YouTube creator, or you've built a massive following on Twitter, or you've created X, Y, and Z, if you have a dependency on that platform, they can pull that rug, to use a blockchain term, they can pull that rug away from you anytime they like. Right. And it happens all the time. Loads of people built businesses that were like really, really heavily dependent on Twitter API, and then they changed a ton of it, which really nobbled them. In the same way, it's like Google, people used to spend forever like optimizing their websites to make sure they got to the top of the rankings, and then boom, SEO, with SEO, and then there's an algorithm change, boom, and now you're down to page 100.
You don't think about it like that, do you?
And it used to happen all the time, still happens today, I'm sure. And that's the thing, and it's fair enough. Google's a centralized system. They're trying to improve their algorithms for whatever reason. So you always have to be cautious of, where you build these dependencies. And I think decentralized worlds will just give people more options to de-risk that situation.
Wow.
And go, actually, now this isn't controlled by some central body, therefore it's less likely that I'm going to come a cropper to one of these decisions.